I'm calling to order the Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Bofi?
Present.
Mr. Davis?
Present.
Ms. Edmonston?
Present.
Mr. Garvey?
Here.
Ms. Holloway?
Here.
Dr. Jones?
Here.
Ms. Lewis is not in attendance. Ms. Orange-Jones is not in attendance. Mr. Rock?
Present.
Dr. Thomason?
Present.
Ms. Fauché? Here. Ms. Doyle is not in attendance. You have a quorum.
What's our first item? Members, I would like to share with you that our student representative, Cameron Doyle, our new student representative, is not able to join us today. So she had an emergency surgery yesterday, but all is fine. I know that she must be disappointed because she was very excited to sit on the board with us, so we expect her to join us at the next meeting.
Your consent agenda is ready for your approval, adding items 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3.
So Mr. Rock and Ms. Fauché is a second. Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. What's our next item?
Your first item is on page 1, item 2.1, consideration of the test security irregularities report for the 2017-2018 school year. The department recommendation is to receive the report.
Thank you, Dr. Thomason. A second by Ms. Edmondson. Do we have any comment cards?
No, ma'am, not on this item.
Superintendent
Members, I'll
White.
just let you know this is the standard report that's issued related to administrative irregularities. As you know, you've put in place a process whereby if these the consequences of these need to be appealed, they can. So this is not the last step in the process, but this is this year's report. The trends, by and large, are consistent with past years. There's a couple of aberrations up and down. We think those are generally the responsibility of particular isolated instances. But again, as I said, if districts wish to kind of arbitrate this issue further, they may now through the process that you've created.
Board members, do you have any questions? Yes, Dr. Jones.
Did we note any recurring districts that consistently, came over from last year? Are they?
No, in fact, the large instances of the last 2 years do not show up again here this year. There's one large instance this year in East Baton Rouge Parish. We think that is an isolated instance. There was an unapproved piece of information that was handed out to kids in large numbers. That's the only large instance we're seeing.
Okay, good, thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none, motion passes. What's our next item? Oh, are there any objections? Sorry. No objections. Thank you.
Your next item is on page 36, item 3.1, consideration of the authorization of the course providers for the course choice program. The LDE recommendation is to approve the authorization of One Goal, University of Holy Cross, and Founders Education as course providers for the course choice program, beginning with the 2019-2020 school year.
Board members, we need a motion. Thank you, Dr. Jones. And a second by Ms. Holloway. Do we have any comment cards?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Superintendent?
I'll save my comments for the next item.
Board members, do you have any questions or comments? Do you have any objection? Hearing none, motion passes. What's our next item?
Your next item is on page 39, item 3.2, consideration of course choice providers for the Jumpstart Summers program. The LDE recommendation is to approve the course choice providers for the Jumpstart Summers programs for summer 2019 as outlined.
Board members, we need a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Holloway and Ms. Fauché. Do we have comment cards on this one?
I may
Okay.
make some brief-
Superintendent?
Members, I just want to draw your attention. We're about to hear a number of items related to Jumpstart, and I wanted just to draw your attention that what you're being asked to approve on this item are providers that are providing summer courses, and you're going to hear from a number of friends of the Jump Start program, former representative, now fellow state employee Chris Broadwater is here. I know Marjorie Taylor from the Orchard Foundation. Many who have worked on this issue for years are here today. This, though, is particularly important, I think, in that what it does is approve course providers for the summer, because most parishes in the state are now offering Jump Start courses along with workplace-based experience and paid employment over the summer through Jump Start Summers. We've gone from a pilot of a handful of kids to now 3,000 kids this summer who will take Jump Start Summers. This really should grow into the many thousands over time, but I just wanted to thank the board, to thank the school systems, to thank Chris, the community colleges, Marjorie, to thank your support in Central Louisiana, because Jump Start Summers is employing kids, it's certifying kids, it's getting them early college credits. It's just a win-win all around. And really this was the idea originally of David Alexander, Ms. Edmonston, and a couple of superintendents in the north. So congratulations to everybody, and I thank the board for your support.
Board members, do you have any questions or comments on this item?
Just one quick comment to say that I'm really glad this program is expanding the way that it's expanding. This is certainly the direction we need to be moving, and it's really good to see it moving in that direction, especially at the rate that it's increasing.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion passes. What's our next item?
Your next item is on page 43, item 3.3, consideration of an update report regarding the Jump Start 2.0 blueprint. The LDE recommendation is to receive the report. Updated backup documentation is being distributed now.
Superintendent? Oh, yeah, I need a motion. Thank you.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, and a second by Ms. Holloway. Superintendent?
Thank you, and I'm going to ask Assistant Superintendent Bradford if he would come to the table. Members, this is an update on a process that we have undertaken. There's a lot more left in this process, so this is kind of a mid-process update, but I just want to give you a sense of this. If you recall, a while back, Mr. Davis asked us to do a review of the industry-based credentials, and we received some difficult information from an economist who did the review, who told us that our Jump Start program was still not really aligned with the jobs that were available for entry-level workers in the state. You directed our team to commence the process of developing a kind of response to that, and Ken Bradford and his team, many of whom are represented here today, Ted Holmes, Jessica Villalingua, and others, Stephanie Markham, I saw, have jumped into creating a blueprint for Jump Start 2.0. They've received feedback on Jump Start 2.0. They're here to share with you the feedback they got. So we're not bringing you decisions or a proposal so much as we're bringing you a summary of the feedback that's been received. And we then intend to proceed and work with the people who gave us feedback and continue working on things. So I'm going to pass it to Ken, who will broadly share the overview of the feedback that we've received. And we very much appreciate your continued support of Jump Start and this new vision. And so we're working, Ken, we're not looking at these slides because we have a technology problem, so we're looking at paper that was just passed out to you as well.
Good morning. Ken Bradford, Assistant Superintendent, Office of Student Opportunities. I'll just start by setting the context. And when we began Jump Start with the 2014-2015 incoming freshman class, at that point in time, we had 2% of the students in the state that were on a career diploma pathway. They were predominantly students that were low income, predominantly African American students. Moving forward, after 4 years of having the program and implementing it, in 2018 we graduated our first cohort of Jump Start students. That represented approximately 23% of the students that graduated last May were Jump Start students. So we went from 2% of students on a career diploma to 23% of students on our career diploma. We have gone from, in 2013-14, having 18,000 credentials earned by Louisiana students to last year where we had in that cohort 90,000 credentials earned by students. We have a 50-50 approximately proportion of African American students versus non-African American students that are on the career diploma. And we have a 65-35% split of male to female students that were taking the career diploma. When we looked at this starting last spring, of the 8,000 graduates, approximately 60% of them had a statewide credential, but 40% of our Jumpstart Career Diploma students were not graduating with a statewide credential. They were graduating with one of our lower tiered regional credentials, which has prompted us to, let's go look at Jumpstart, let's go get feedback from the field. And that's what we did. We spent last fall out in the field at supervisor collaborations, at counselor collaborations, at workforce development boards, and we went around the state and we met, and we released a blueprint in February saying, this is what we've heard thus far. Let's package up where we want to go with Jumpstart. We released that in February, the blueprint, and now I'm going to go to slide 2 and walk you through it. And there's eight things that were highlighted in our blueprint that we received fairly significant feedback and are giving us direction for the program. So I want to share those 8 with you. The first one is there was broad consensus that we should increase the exposure to work-based learning experiences, and that we should have a work-based learning experience in every Jumpstart pathway. And this attests to what you just approved in the previous item. I'm just going to expand upon what Superintendent White said, is this summer you just approved an additional 15 Jumpstart Summers providers. Couple that with last year's 48 that were approved, and we have over 60 providers of Jumpstart Summers that's going to provide 3,000 students access to a work-based learning experience this summer across the state. And what this is saying is that what we're hearing from the field is every student should be getting access to a work-based learning experience if they're participating in Jumpstart. So that was the first point of feedback. The second point of feedback is that the credentials that are attained by students should be focusing on getting them good jobs. When we look at that data, and I just alluded to this, 60% of our graduates on the Jumpstart Career Diploma are getting the statewide credential. We are hearing from business and industry partners from our school systems that we want every student earning a statewide credential. And so we have credentials tiered right now into 3 areas: regional credentials, a statewide basic credential, which means it has been endorsed by the Workforce Investment Council as a high-wage, high-demand credential. And then we have an advanced statewide credential, like you're getting a level 2 welding or a level 2 electrical, level 2 IT certificate. What we're proposing as next steps is that we kick off a review of the credentials, and that we will re-engage the IBC Council that falls under the jurisdiction of the Workforce Investment Council, and ask them to lead a review of the current statewide credentials to make sure that they are still categorized as high-wage, high-demand, that they're employable, and that they're rigor. And then for our lower-tiered regional credentials, have the department, again, work with the IBC Council to ensure that these regional credentials, which were 40% of our students were getting these regional credentials, to ensure that they are indeed providing value to the student and providing value to business and industry. The third point that we heard from the field is that we need to take the time and align our existing 51 Jumpstart pathways with the federal Carl Perkins CTE clusters. There's 16 clusters of CTE, and we need to get our pathways aligned to them so that it's very clear for a school system, hey, there's federal Carl Perkins dollars, we're doing needs assessments around our Carl Perkins dollars, we're getting ready to expend our federal Carl Perkins dollars. Where do these statewide pathways fall? Is this a manufacturing pathway? Is this an IT pathway? Is there some cross in between? So we have been asked to, from the field, align our 51 existing pathways with the 16 federal Carl Perkins CTE cluster pathways. The fourth thing is strong support to celebrate Jumpstart successes. One area is in our Student of the Year. And I know I was with Ms. Bofi, I was with Dr. Jones, Mr. Gary. We were all there last week. We were doing Student of the Year. And when we did the Student of the Year ceremony, what we're recognizing is students have attained advanced placement scores. Several of them, they had taken over 43 advanced placement courses combined, the high school finalists. They had earned several advanced placement credits. Several of them were National Merit Scholars. Several of them played soccer, as Dr. Jones noted so eloquently. But they were all academic focused. Yet, none of the seniors that were sitting in the front row last Wednesday night, none of them had level 2 industry-based credentials, had done a work-based learning experience, were TOPS Tech eligible because they graduated with a TOPS Tech career diploma. So what we've heard is, look, we need to also be recognizing these students. And you know, that is perhaps going back and reviewing our rubric for Student of the Year to making sure that we're capturing students that are participating in FFA, that are doing work-based learning experiences, that are attaining some of these high-wage, high-demand level 2 industry-based credentials. The other thing about celebrating the success of Jumpstart is the IBC results. Every year in mid-July, we get a list from the College Board that tells us all of the advanced placement test results. In the department, we do a press release the first week of August, and we share all of the achievements of advanced placement. And we're saying this, let's share the achievements of the industry-based credentials that are earned by students across school systems and highlight those. The fifth one, there is strong support for more professional development for our counselors, our special population coordinators, and CTE leaders around the state with Jumpstart. Mr. John Warner Smith and I have been talking recently with Next Horizon, and he's going to speak to this, but when we did our blueprint, we found that just a little bit over 20% of our high school counselors knew what the high-wage, high-demand job sectors were in their region. And that was alarming to us, that they didn't know. And so we need to do a better job of engaging our counselors, making those connections for them with business and industry, helping explain to them the difference between millwrights and electricians and carpenters and pipe fitters, what all of those mean and what the opportunities are. We also heard from our special populations coordinators that we have students that have an accommodation and an IEP, and I have to go down to go over to the career center, the technical center, and work with that instructor to make an accommodation in the IEP. And so our special coordinators are asking us, special populations coordinators are asking us to give them more professional development. That will be one of our next steps, is to, as we start mapping out next school year, is engaging those stakeholders in this. The most popular one that we had was our revamping the Jumpstart website. It got a standing ovation at the Jumpstart convention, and we are going to start with quick win changes immediately, updating our website. At times you have to click through 8 pages to find out what are the instructor requirements for an NCCER welding instructor. So we want to have a more user-friendly Jumpstart website. The last two. There is consensus that we have some duplicative governance groups out there with Jumpstart. And we currently have a structure that our CTE supervisors go to whereby they attend quarterly federal Carl Perkins meetings where they're meeting with post-secondary, business and industry providers, and they are doing a needs assessment around their CTE needs. They're planning quarterly, and they're getting labor market information. And we are hearing from the field with our CTE supervisors that, look, I go to a meeting in the morning with my Jumpstart regional teams, and then in the afternoon I'm basically going to the same meeting with my Carl Perkins team. And then sometimes I'll go one week, the second week in April to a Jumpstart meeting, but then a week later I'll have to get in my car and I'll go to another meeting, the Carl Perkins meeting, and it's the same people, for the most part, at the same meetings. And so there's an opportunity now to actually just make one body, make that one body. And our Jumpstart regional teams, in essence, would now be our Carl Perkins teams. And it will be a convenience for the field, but it would also have quarterly, it would have business and industry, post-secondary partners, K-12 educators, getting workforce data information, doing a needs assessment, and planning strategically for their region, sharing resources, talking about being able to braid the federal dollars that they're getting for Carl Perkins with their state MFP Jumpstart Career Development Fund dollars. This is a transition that we would like to start in 2019, 2020 as the state is receiving as the state is implementing the new Carl Perkins 5. And finally, what we heard is that in the rural and smaller parishes, there are dispersed resources. It's difficult to access employers at times to help with things like work-based learning experiences, etc. And so what the department is proposing in the blueprint to address that is that perhaps having those parishes come together and form some sort of consortia whereby either the department would fund a consortia lead through some federal Carl Perkins dollars, or perhaps the department actually works to have a staff member that has a main set of responsibilities to work specifically with our rural parishes and our small parishes in helping them facilitate these best practices with Jumpstart. And I say all of this with eventually where we would like to go with this is to bring back to you a set of Jumpstart pathways that are streamlined and completely aligned with our high-wage, high-demand job sectors.
So members, this is an ongoing process and not one that's near complete, but it's been good to go out and get feedback. We heard kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we look forward to continuing to answer your questions. And I know Assistant Superintendent Bradford, Ted, Jessica, everybody is here if you have questions.
Board members, we also have some comment cards. I can take those if you'd like first, and then we can ask questions of Mr. Bradford. Mr. Bradford, I would stay pretty close. Chris Broadwater with LCTCS, John Warner Smith with Education's Next Horizon, Kathy Smith with Louisiana School Counseling Association, and Ethan Melanson with the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. If you all would come forward, please. We'll take your testimony now. Mr. Broadwater, we'll go ahead and start with you.
I'll be glad to. I'll be happy to defer to the lady, whatever the chair prefers.
Ms. Smith, would you like to go first?
Okay.
Make sure your green light is on.
Now it is.
Thank you.
I'm Kathy Smith, and I'm a school counselor at Jennings High School in Jeff Davis Parish. I've been working with Jumpstart since the beginning, and I'm definitely on board with Jumpstart. I have seen students and parents high-five when these students get these credentials, excitement that, because these are the students who were not the 4.0s, and this gives them some validation, some success. So definitely supporting the 2.0, making it even better. It's, like I said, opened many doors that were not open before for some of these students. And we've had a great discussion between the school counselors, the Department of Ed, ongoing, a seat at the table, and we appreciate that because we're the ones basically that are getting these students graduated and on those paths and introducing it to them. We have that voice, and we working collaboratively with Louisiana School Counseling Association, the Career Development Association, and of course DOE. The only thing that I would like to see is I wish there were scholarships for these students, because it's heartbreaking. They come to my office and they want scholarships, and there's none. But anyway, that's just a side note. But anyway, it's very supportive, and I've seen great success.
Kathy, you mean after they graduate, there's no scholarships?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, they come in, they see these other students applying for scholarships. We announce it. I send out emails, and it's on my webpage, and they'll come in asking for scholarships, and they're very few. Fritz Lane, however, but they do pay for a 4-year college, but there's just really not a lot. We do have TOPS Tech.
Yeah.
I've always had students, and now with WorkKey Silver, we can, get them in with the TOPS Tech for that. So that's really been helpful. The kids get so excited. One day I had a student that passed the work key silver one day, and the next day I helped him fill out the FAFSA, so he had that and he qualified. And I mean, he just said, this is the best day of my life, because he had this, I know it makes me want to cry, he had this opportunity to do something further. So it was exciting.
The Counselor Association has been just a tremendous partner. Really, 7 years we've been working together, so I really
Yes, sir.
appreciate you and appreciate what you have to say.
Thank you.
And thank you for the comment about the scholarship, because I think it is connected to what Mr. Bradford proposes relative to celebrating the successes of our students.
That's kind of why I brought it up.
Yes, I think that's a practical application of it. So noted. Okay. Mr. Broadwater?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Superintendent, members. I'm Chris Broadwater. I'm Vice President of Workforce Policy at the Community and Technical College System. I wanted to first thank you for the work that you're doing in this area. You have been a critical and important partner in the work of career and technical education in the state, and a critical cog in the wheel of moving our state forward and providing opportunities for our students in business and industry. And I can tell you that in this particular area, we are seeing some of the most fascinating growth that we have seen in some time. The industry-based credential is the fastest growing credential being offered by our community and technical college system in this state. We had over 20,000 additional people participating in this area within our colleges over the last year. I can tell you that our outcomes in terms of, we track the earnings of our graduates in the 2 quarters following their completion with us. And the earnings opportunities are higher for those that are graduating with an industry-based credential than those that are going through our pure academic credit model, to the tune of about $5,200 more in starting salary. So it is important work, it's valuable work, and it's needed work in our economy that provides great opportunities for our students. But I also want to make sure that I commend you for the work that you are doing in evaluation of your Jump Start program. In particular, there are a couple of comments that Assistant Superintendent Bradford made that we are excited about and look forward to seeing you pursue further as we continue to strengthen our partnership. As you are aware, we administer the Carl Perkins funds that we roughly divide in half with K-12. We believe in the work that you are doing, and that partnership, I would say, has never been stronger than it is right now. With that, there are some unique opportunities, we believe. Number one, as you look at collapsing the Jump Start career pathways to more closely align with the Carl Perkins pathways, it provides tremendous opportunity. One, it provides opportunity for the student as they earn credentials while they are with you in the K-12 system. It puts them further ahead as they join us for additional training. Our greatest enemy in our system is time. Many of these students don't have the time and the luxury to spend that much time in continuing their education in the post-secondary system. As you've already heard, there are limits oftentimes in scholarships. These are individuals that are looking to get the credential that gives them the opportunity to move forward in the economy with work. By you playing that role and delivering those credentials early on in their high school studies, you get them further ahead as you hand them off to us to continue their studies. That is invaluable to the life of that student and their family. Second of all, it also helps as we explore the other recommendation there, that is greater professional development. We applaud that, we agree with that, not only for your instructors, but for the instructors that are in the post-secondary system. That's why this year we're recommending increasing the funding out of the Carl Perkins funding to contribute to professional development. And that we would love to see opportunities to collaborate where we can do that professional development together. We have some resources that we would look forward to sharing with our K-12 partners. Likewise, you have some tremendous instructors that, quite frankly, we would look forward to learning from some of you. So the opportunities there to share would be tremendous. And then lastly, I am excited about the opportunity to have greater collaboration if there is opportunity to work collaboratively with the Jump Start regional teams as well as the Carl Perkins regional teams. With Carl Perkins 5, there is a directive from the federal government that we be even more intentional in looking at our labor market information and that we do a comprehensive needs assessment to ensure that what we are delivering to students matters in the marketplace. And we are ever mindful of that as we deliver instruction, as we know you are. By doing this in a collaborative way and working in these regions together, it provides even greater opportunity to ensure that our pathways align, that we are supportive of the work that you're doing, and that the work you are doing complements the work that we do as you hand off that student to us. So thank you for the work that you're doing. We appreciate the partnership that you offer to us, and we look forward to continuing to strengthen that as we move forward. So thank you, Madam Chair, for the time.
Yes, sir. Next.
Good morning, members and superintendent. My name is Ethan Melanson, and I am the staff lead for Education and Workforce Development at the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. Working in education and workforce development, it's difficult to go to a conference and not hear praises about Louisiana's career and technical education programs. It's wonderful to be able to go and talk to these people and hear all the wonderful things and how other states want to kind of implement something very similar. Just came back from a STEM conference in New Orleans where we heard this over and over with Jessica back there. We commend the board and the department for assessing Jumpstart and seeing that there was a misalignment and taking this moment to fix that. We also commend the department for allowing industry and economic development organizations a chance to provide feedback to the blueprint and to really address some of the concerns that we had going forward and some of the issues that we've seen with Jumpstart since its inception. BRAC commits to assisting in shaping policy for Jumpstart 2.0 and help in any way to continue to provide opportunities to students not only in the capital region, but for all students in Louisiana. Thank you.
John There we go. I want to begin by, I guess, really thanking Superintendent White and Ken and the LDOL team for creating Jumpstart and getting it off to a good start. But it's obvious from the results that we still have a lot of work to do. I want to take you back to 2009. Education's Next Horizon issued its first policy report on two issues. One, the skills gap, and the second one, early care and education. And on the skills gap issue, and this was probably, I guess, about an 8 or 9 month study process. It culminated in a report with 3 major recommendations. I won't go through them in detail with you, but I'll tell you that the same issues that we are grappling with here today, we were grappling with in 2008 and 2009. And these recommendations are just as relevant today as they were then. Ken mentioned a couple of them, actually, that Jumpstart has embraced without even probably seeing this report. The number one recommendation was to urge and support a retooling and expansion of CTE. There's some detail there that I'll just overlook, but the second one was to align and integrate CTE with core academic curriculum and standards. Core academic curriculum and standards. We recommended that the state launch a comprehensive communication and promotional campaign for CTE to remove the stigma. Of course, we know that that stigma still exists today. And lastly, we recommended that we expand career guidance and education in middle and high school. Now, we took these recommendations and, within our limited sort of capacity and resources, prioritized them in terms of what we can do as a little organization, policy advocacy group. And so we decided to work with the state in developing, in addressing the communication issue. And Aaron Bentley, sitting here today, I believe, was in the governor's office at the time, was instrumental in bringing the cabinet heads of the state together with some private sector marketing experts that we hired to work on this issue. And we asked this question. I'll try to be brief. I know your time's limited here. How do we bridge the skills gap by supporting the public education system in a manner that increases high school graduation rates and enrollment in post-secondary educational programs that align with Louisiana's high-demand careers? We asked that question in 2010. Now, we've increased credentials, more students are graduating, but the problem is that they are not aligned to high-demand, high-wage jobs. And so we asked the second question, what can we do in terms of communication? The marketing experts said this: we must empower those that have the greatest influence on students by connecting them to the resources we already have. And by that, they meant teachers. Why teachers? The teacher is the most important single factor for student success. And so we went on to build out this strategy. And
You are going to get me in trouble with my colleagues if you keep talking, sir.
I'm going to shut it down right now. To build out a strategy to provide teachers with labor market information in formats that they understand and that make this information accessible to them. So that is what I will leave with you this morning, that you would really, and Superintendent White and his staff, think about that as part of your communication strategy.
I would like to join you over coffee to discuss that further, sir. Mr. White?
Do we need to receive the report?
Do you want me to do all that first? I think the board members are going to want to talk about it. I think we're going to have a little more discussion before we go on, if you want to take your moment.
Members, I did want to just, if you wouldn't mind, take a moment of personal privilege. You were going to do that, Dr. Jones?
Let me do it for you.
All right, you go ahead, yeah.
Madam Chairman, I'd like the Chamber to recognize the entrance of John White's real two bosses. Mrs. John White and Miss John White. Are in the back of the room back there, that beautiful young child and that beautiful lady.
My wife Catherine and my daughter Grace are here, as Gary said. With spring break at our child care this week, so we have a lot of friends in this room, a lot of longtime colleagues, and we have a lot of friends and longtime colleagues in the legislature, and given that both bodies have decided to drag me in front of them today, we thought, why not drag all three of us in front of them today? So we're very blessed, and we're blessed to have all of you as friends, and I'm thrilled that Grace could be here for her first BESE meeting. If she's going to give comment, we're going to have really good transcription, I'll tell you that. So I don't think she'll be at the table today.
That's great. Thank you so much. We have one more comment card. Dr. Vosper, would you like to come forward? And Grace, welcome to your first BESE meeting.
Good morning, Superintendent. I really came just to see the baby, but this is not a bad item either. We want, on behalf of the Board of Regents, we have been doing quite a bit of work around the conversation related to work-based learning and the work that the department has been doing first in socializing this process, getting broad input from throughout the state, and of course reaching upstairs to the Board of Regents to participate with them and to look at this policy we're excited about. We are looking at moving forward with a very organized way in looking at work-based learning and the work that's going to happen in Jumpstart, the work that the department is doing and providing with us as we're looking at regional conversations and meetings. This ties right into it. The work Mr. Broadwater talked about with our Perkins 5 team, with our WIOA state team, with all of the different state teams, and then the work that's happening with Jumpstart 2.0, gives us a real opportunity to collaborate, and the Board of Regents is moving forward. You'll hear more about it from the Commissioner with our new master plan. And the 3 pillars in that master plan are educate, innovate, and collaborate. And the collaborate portion of that plan is really focused on how we can better align our education and workforce enterprises to create policies that students not only leave each of our respective entities, but also go forth to have a life and to be future ready in that life. And we are convinced that what Jumpstart has done, and more especially what it has planned to do going forward, will better position a real generation of Louisianians to do great things. And one of the gentlemen that was here before spoke about going to national meetings and being excited to have Louisiana on your name tag. We would go to national meetings. We used to put our badge in our purse so people wouldn't know what state we were from, seriously. And then when we started this CTE conversation and this revitalization effort, we are really the envy of most places in the country around the way we are partnering, collaborating, and moving CTE from the stigmatized program it used to be to being the envy of other states to do what we've done. So kudos to you. We are excited to join hands and partner with you, and thank you for extending a seat at the table for us to be involved.
Thank you. Mr. Bradford. So I'm gonna ask the first question, then I'll turn it over to my fellow BESE members. I will say that I agree with everything here and appreciate all the hard work, and had an opportunity to attend a meeting recently where I was able to hear directly from some of our educators who are implementing some of this work. I think one piece that I'm struggling with is the point of pride that I've had with this initiative is the way that it was implemented through the local regional structures. I understand the need to align with Carl Perkins. I completely get that. I'm hearing things about aligning and streamlining. I think all of those make sense. I guess my question to you is, help me reconcile in my head how we're not moving away from what has been a strength in this work with the local development.
Yeah. So,
I don't think your mic is on.
Yeah. The original Jumpstart regional teams, what they were, we said, here's a blank slate of 9 courses that students can take that must culminate with an industry-based credential. And in 2014-15, local school systems, post-secondary, and business and industry came together to design a set of Jumpstart course progressions and pathways, which we're at 51 today. And there was lots of momentum around that in 2014 and 15. However, as we look now 4 or 5 years later, what we're seeing is that that momentum has been lost. They came together, they built these, and it will be hit and miss. In some parts of the state, there'll be, they still convene. In other parts of the state, Jumpstart regional teams aren't convening anymore. Okay. And so as we have been working on the Perkins 5 with LCTCS and the transition to the new Perkins 5, there was a suggestion that has come from across the state of multiple CTE supervisors that are saying, look, we have to meet quarterly with Carl Perkins. And when we meet, we're talking about regional labor markets. We're talking about the funding of not only the federal CTE Carl Perkins, but of the state Carl Perkins. We're talking about sharing resources. As Mr. Broadwater alluded to, we're talking about starting a program of study in high school and then having that transition straight into an LCTCS campus somewhere across the state. So the request has been, since we're going to be meeting quarterly and talking about labor market analyses, CTE funding, sharing resources, and having business and industry partners at the table, let's make our regional teams, which almost completely overlay already with a Jumpstart regional team, make them one, so that we're going to one meeting every quarter. We're talking about Jumpstart, we're talking about Carl Perkins, we're talking about labor market analyses. And so that would sustain. As a condition of getting your federal Carl Perkins dollars, you have to attend those meetings. And Mr. Broadwater and LCTCS has made a commitment that if we transition to the regional Carl Perkins teams model as being the foundation for our Jumpstart regional teams, it will still be grassroots, developing, designing, and giving input on pathways, but that no one whom participated in a previous Jumpstart regional pathway as a business and industry partner would be left out. You will just now start coming to your Carl Perkins regional team. You might actually even be going more, because now you're getting to go quarterly as a business and industry provider. And Chris is shaking his head, but he has committed that any business and industry partner that was previously part of a regional team, he'll now be adopted and come into a Carl Perkins team.
Thank you so much. It's really helpful. I also see a lot of support from it. I mean, the sentiment is very supportive here. So I just know that personally, under the way that we've implemented Jumpstart has been a point of pride, and I appreciate that explanation. Board members, do you have any questions or comments? We'll have Mr. Garvey and then Mr. Davis.
Yes, I'm not sure who this is a question for, the superintendent or Mr. Broadwater or Mr. Bradford. But I think it was a day ago there was an article in the Advocate about a proposal by the governor to allow juniors and seniors to take 2 college classes. I assume that's each year. And he's working on this proposal, and they're talking about implementing it for the, I think, 2021 school year. And I'm wondering if y'all are familiar with that, and is there a reason why we have to wait a year? As Mr. Broadwater said, our biggest enemy is time, and I'd hate to wait a year when we could start doing some of it, if not all of it, this fall. Do y'all know the details and why it is that we can't get some of it going this fall?
Chris may have insight into that. I would just say that the concept of the bill, I hope, is one that the officers will support and that ultimately the board will support. I think it's a good concept. I think that probably most of the dual enrollment that's contained within that bill is already there for the, to be participated in, and probably there is a way of accelerating implementation, but this is an operations issue for the colleges, so I would defer to Mr. Broadwater.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey. We are familiar with the proposal, and I think as in the article that you read, I think it accurately reflected that those discussions are still ongoing, as you probably all are well aware. And see, Ms. Doris has stepped out, but is in her service on the College and Career Readiness Commission. This is an issue that we have been talking about a number of years, and there continue to be challenges in terms of getting it right. With that being said, we are firm believers that there is tremendous opportunity for students in this concept of dual enrollment, and there is tremendous opportunity in collaboration. Some of the very positive things that we have seen over the last 6 to 8 years in terms of, as you heard in testimony earlier from the counselor who shared, the excitement from a student who realized that there's opportunity for them, that they can get it when they got that silver on work keys, when they find out that they're eligible for TOPS Tech. There is likewise opportunity whenever that student undertakes college coursework while still in high school, in realizing that they are capable and that there is opportunity there for them. I think that it is difficult to measure the value of that. Because of that, we are incredibly supportive of this concept of finding ways to strengthen relationships between post-secondary and secondary to ensure that we provide the opportunity for delivery of dual enrollment. I would likewise tell you that for too long, in my opinion, dual enrollment focus has been almost exclusively on the traditional college course without understanding the opportunity for dual enrollment surrounding career and technical education. And there is a unique opportunity there that I think that we owe it to students to continue to explore the collaboration between our systems, the other post-secondary systems, and the K-12 system in figuring out how we deliver that through dual enrollment. And particularly as you look at rural areas, another issue that was one of the recommendations with regard to revamping Jumpstart. And we are committed to that. I do not underestimate the difficulty of working out all of the details when you're trying to move 2 very large entities into a collaborative process and delivery of instruction. But as I said, I think you saw in the article, this is worth the effort. And if we can get it done and get it done so that we are ready to implement sooner, that's better. That's one more class of students that is provided that opportunity. And so we remain committed to do it, whether that is when we start in the fall or whether it's the fall of next year or the fall after that. We continue to remain committed to being at the table trying to work out this collaboration.
Can I follow up then? I was wondering, what is what part of the plan is it that's going to take a year and a half to implement that can't be implemented in half a year?
Well,
is it funding that they need to find, or is it collaboration and parties not being able to work fast enough together?
I think that you will find that you have certain areas of the state where things work well and where there is ongoing good collaboration and agreements in place. Anytime you deal with an issue of additional instruction, particularly in a proposal that commits to at least 2 courses for each student, funding is always an issue, not only in terms of is there sufficient funding, but figuring out how that flows between 2 separate systems. But just because that has sometimes been a barrier in some areas of the state does not mean we shouldn't be having the discussion to try to figure it out. So I think the challenge in terms of rolling something out quickly is only in terms of a unified approach. It is by no means impossible. I think that you will continue to see success in dual enrollment in different areas. I think our goal, all of our goals in both systems, as well as I suspect the governor's, is that being able to roll something out in a unified format so that regardless of where the student lives, regardless of their gender, regardless of their ethnicity, that everyone has equal access to high quality dual enrollment education, regardless of what district they're in or what corner of the state they may live.
And Mr. Bradford, do you have anything to add?
No, sir.
That you know of that might could speed up this year and a half process? No? Okay.
Mr.
Thank you.
Broadwater has taken the words from me, so I agree with everything that he said.
All right, Mr. Davis.
So we've come a long way in the last year since we started looking at this, and I thank Mr. Bradford for his work on this and his team. And I think we have a good set of proposals in front of us. One of the questions that I had, the chairman already addressed relative to integrating the Perkins teams and the Jumpstart Pathway teams. It's important to note, as I think it's been alluded to, that this process is more seamless in some areas of the state than other areas. The pathways have been held more rigorously. The team meetings have been held more rigorously and consistently in some areas than other parts of the state. And so I caution as we look at that, that while I think we can have a pretty seamless transition into that change, that we make sure we're respecting those areas where it is working well, and that as we look at this, that we make sure that we don't change for the sake of a one-size-fits-all rule and take out what may be working very well in certain parts of the state. So I just want to urge the department and for us as oversight that as we look at this, that we're working closely with our local partners. That was also referenced in how successful this has been from the ground up, and we don't want to alleviate that as we move into some great new changes. One particular issue that has arisen, and I see I have some partners from Central Louisiana, that this may have been addressed, and forgive me if it hasn't, Mr. Bradford, we've worked close on this, but I've been a little out of pocket lately to catch up. But one of the changes we're proposing is eliminating the complementary credentials in an effort to tighten this up, and that's a move that I certainly would agree with. But we look at the NCRCs and their status. Could you take a moment and make sure the board understands where the NCRC lies right now in the pathways, in the Jumpstart program, how that overlays with our accountability systems, and how we're going to address that moving forward. And we'll see, based on how you come back from this, we may have a few more questions.
So I'm first going to just come back real quick to Mr. Garvey. I do have one comment. I do think the board has positioned the school systems and post-secondary over the last 4 years to be very ready to implement this whenever the necessary funding and policy is in place. And I just say that because we have worked very diligently the last 5 to 6 years to ensure that all of the high school academic courses, whether they're CTE courses in a Jumpstart pathway for dual enrollment credit, or whether they're core academic courses that are dual enrollment for a TOPS university diploma, we have worked strategically to ensure with higher education that those not only count for the post-secondary credit, but that they're also counting for the high school diploma credit. So once legislation was passed and the funding was identified and the structure is in place, I do feel that we are ready to move, or appropriately on that, because the policies are in place and all the articulation is in place for these courses that they may be taking as juniors and seniors to count for the graduation requirements, etc. And now to Mr. Davis. Yes, so in one of the things we heard as we were out in the field is that to get the, remember, I'm going to go back to this, the tiering of our credentials. There's a regional credential, which is the kind of the bare minimum credential to get across the finish line as a Jumpstart student. That was 40% of our students had a regional credential. That's an example of electrical helper, NCCR welder helper. I haven't completed the full industry-based certificate. I've completed a partial industry-based certificate. And what is required when you only complete a partial industry-based certificate is that you package that with 2 complementaries. So for instance, if I get a welder helper, I don't have the full welder certificate, what I package that with, in theory, is an OSHA 10 certificate, a safety certificate, maybe a first aid certificate. We heard that we should remove that requirement of when you get a regional credential, you shouldn't have to bundle that with 2 things. So we went back and we looked at some of the data just to see what are school systems packaging this with. And basically, your top 3 credentials that we're getting packaged with included Microsoft Office Word or Microsoft Office PowerPoint. And when we looked at, we heard from business and industry, like when I receive one of these Jumpstart graduates and they're an electrical helper, them having a Microsoft PowerPoint certificate bundled with that helper welding certificate, they could have used something different. Perhaps they could have spent that time in the class working towards the full certificate in lieu of trying to get a Microsoft Office and a Microsoft PowerPoint certificate. Now, that being said, in the first blueprint, we said, let's remove complementary credentials. And then we heard from Central Louisiana that they were using as a complementary credential the work key certificate. So what we have now proposed in the blueprint is not completely removing complementary credentials. What we've proposed is give the department time to lead a review of the regional credentials and the complementary credentials, and ensuring that they, if there's a way we can ensure that they're providing the value that they were intended to provide for that student on his or her pathway.
Good. I just want to make sure the board understands that, and I appreciate you answering the question there, Mr. Bradford. That is certainly, Central Louisiana is the model for the implementation of the work-ready communities in Louisiana. The NCRCs are a very important part of that. It is part of our accountability system. We don't want to lose that, so we want to make sure that it is included in that, especially as we look at how that may expand across the entire state. That is a fully functioning ecosystem, those work-ready communities, and we want to make sure that we are not handicapping ourselves, both for our K-12 students, our high school students, but also in how this ties in directly with our employers across the state. So I appreciate you taking time to address that, and hopefully we can keep that conversation going and make sure we get to the point. And again, thank you for the work in getting us to this point.
Ms. Fauché.
And I had to step out a moment, so I don't want to.
It's okay. We'll repeat it if we need to, Ms. Fauché.
All right.
We're all buddies here.
Okay. No, I think everyone statewide has responded so positively to this entire initiative. And as Mr. Davis was talking about, there are pockets in different parts of the state who are more heavily invested in certain areas. So when we're talking about a change, it's only natural for people to say, well, what about this? We're really heavily invested here. What about this? So I think that it's very good that we're listening to those particular stakeholders in how do we get to where we want to be, respecting the work that's already been done and the specific areas of the state and what those needs are. I do want to give a shout out, though, to Monty Sullivan and Chris Broadwater here with our vocational and technical and community college system, where I guess in my area of the state, I'm fortunate enough to be very close with one of those institutions, and most of our students are availing themselves of the programs at those vocational and community colleges. We have had, and we're heavily invested in the CTE program. We're heavily invested in those particular credentials. I've got kids who are receiving on the same night their high school diploma and associate degrees, specifically in the P-Tech or process technology areas, which support an industry all along our area, and do it very, very, very well. We're also starting associate degrees now with them in the new aerospace program that they're putting in at Nunez Community College. But anywhere from the associate degrees to the technical certificates to the more specific IBCs, I think that's going to be really the venue that we can see where this program is just going to expand and flourish across the state. Because when you're able to go to that particular venue in an area and your kids can avail themselves of all the different services and programs there, that's a benefit to the local high school. Because while this initiative is, we need to do it for our kids and for our state, it comes with a great deal of logistical problems. You're talking about meshing high school schedules with college schedules or different provider schedules. You're talking about transportation. You're talking about supply. You're talking about a whole lot of things that go into making the program successful. And when you have particular venues, and I think the community and technical college system is right for that, you have a venue that's going to offer the broad, I guess, range of programs and activities on one campus, then that's a plus for local school systems. So I just want to give a shout out, to Monty Sullivan and now Chris Broadwater in pushing this initiative and working with school systems and expanding the programs that we offer to students. And I'm glad to see, that Ken and his staff are working with the different areas of the state to make sure that this transition is going to be very positive and seamless and respect the work that has been done up to this point.
All right. I had someone else who would like to speak. Summer Dan with EBR-CTEC.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Why don't you start by explaining all those initials?
I'm with the East Baton Rouge Parish Career and Technical Education Center.
Perfect.
Opened in August, so we're brand new. It was a brainchild of BRCC, the Baton Rouge Area Foundation, Baton Rouge Area Chamber, and East Baton Rouge Parish. And our main goal is to provide students the opportunity to earn their associate's degree while they're still in high school in a career and tech education field. I came from post-secondary. I taught at LSU for a while, and I've run student programs for a while. I was associate dean with a technical college. This board member, which I'm sorry I don't know your name, did talk about all the issues, and there are a lot of issues. It goes from instructor credentialing, it goes through ACT scores. Some of the ACT scores that are set for the students are barriers. Some of the teachers, counselors, principals don't understand career and technical education and how important it is. But my main concern is looking at my students, it's the stigma that I'm trying to overcome within my community. And so one of the things that I would like to see is if there's a way to make the accountability system consistent between college, typical university, and then also this track. So for instance, when you look at some of the credentialing, I'm just going to use some of the things that I know. EMR would be the statewide, and EMT is not a statewide advance. Can we move it to where that statewide advance gives them 150 points, just like the college students? Or more advanced credentialing, for instance, the ASE is a state advance with 3 of them, but I have a student that will have 6. Can he is there some way to get extra points for that? I'm trying to like level the playing field where the students feel like they've accomplished just as much as the university students. So that would be those are my comments and what I'm seeing from my end.
Thank you very much.
One more comment to that. I think it's a very good point, and that's something that we have been working on, and there's a lot of conversation on that to make sure that if we're going to offer two separate pathways, so to speak, a college and or career, they need to be equal. That if we're going to say they're equal, that we're saying every child, every student should have these equal access to either one of these that are both good options, and they need to be both good options. And that's one of the things that helped instigate this rewrite. So I think the department's doing a good job of working towards that. Hopefully we can get to a really good point with that. And I think that also ties in something that Ms. Smith mentioned earlier, and that, and I don't mean to pick on the wording you used there, Ms. Smith, but relative to saying that I now have something for these kids. Well, the reality of this program should be set up in a way that we have a broad socioeconomic background of kids that says we have great options. Where does this fit for you? No matter who you are, what background you come from, as opposed to saying we've got kids going to college and now we finally have something for everyone else. That's not the way this is designed to work or should be working. It should be a very viable option for every single student to consider, even those who may have said for years that they were planning on going to college and have every intention to, but saying, wow, this is a really great opportunity in front of me that is of the same merit for me to take advantage of. So I think we're moving much closer to that with the 2.0 than we had originally with this program. And again, I commend the department. I'm glad to have all the stakeholder input to help us get to that point.
Thank you. Mr. Garvey.
Yeah, a question for Mr. Bradford. Is there any plans to bring to the Accountability Commission the issues that were just raised by the previous speaker?
Yes, if you look at our next steps, one of the things that we talk about in here is, as a next step, is first is just reviewing the credentials themselves and calling on the IBC Council to do that for us. And ensure that the credentials we have in place right now that are generating the additional weights in the accountability system are one, high wage, high demand, rigorous, relevant, and employable, the current list. And then the second thing is to make sure that we have them all on the list. And a couple of examples are LCTCS now has a manufacturing credential that they offer. The drone credential, FAA drone credential. We have heard.
Mr. Bradford, is that a yes to Mr. Garvey's question?
It is, but I want to set it up because it's not like we're going to go bring something to the Accountability Commission tomorrow. What we want to do is get the credential list right and then come to the Accountability Commission and say, here's the list of credentials that have been deemed high wage, high demand, and we need to make sure we are recognizing them appropriately in the accountability system, like a drone credential, like the new manufacturing credential.
And when should that come to the Accountability Commission, roughly?
We would like to bring a culminating set of pathways to BESE with these new credentials between January and March of next year, which means that this work would kick off immediately, probably in the June timeframe of coming together and starting to review the list of current credentials, and then that would come to the Accountability Commission sometime in the fall when the credential list is finalized with a proposal.
Board members, do you have any objection to this report, receiving this report? Hearing none, motion passes. What's our next item? Sorry, Mr. Bradford. I appreciate your passion for this, though.
Your next item is on page 50, item 4.1, consideration of an update report regarding the special school district. The LDE recommendation is to receive the report.
Members, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey, and a second, Ms. Holloway. Thank you very much. So Superintendent White had to go across the street. We are going to get Ms. Jamie Wong to introduce the report to us.
Great, thank you. Members, I just want to give you a very brief introduction on behalf of Superintendent White. This agenda item is in response to your previous request for a regular update on the special school district. He asked that I share a few things that we are continuing to implement the recommendations of our expert advisors who came out last year to give us a review and feedback on our special schools. In the last meeting, we talked about our process that we will be working with a search firm to identify long-term leadership of the district, and that process is underway. But most importantly, we have some of our colleagues here from the special school district who I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Cooper, Interim Superintendent, to introduce them to you, and they're going to share some information with you specifically about the career and technical education that's going to be taking place on the ground beginning next school year. So, Dr. Cooper, I'll hand it over to you to introduce the team today.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the board. We're really pleased to be here today for a couple of reasons. One is you're being given a list of the highlights of the things that have been accomplished so far this year as we began to look at primarily the EDC report that BESE had commissioned, and we looked at all of their recommendations, and we're trying to follow those as best we can, and it also blends into our strategic plan. As you read through these, and we're not going to discuss them today from our end, but as you read through these, you're going to see a lot of things that probably will pop out and be very very readily recognizable in terms of what was said earlier. We are on schedule for our year one strategic plan, and one of the things that we're really excited about, and this is one of these things that are on the list here, is our CTE Academy. And it's great that Ken was up here talking about all the things that are going on, and we are, if you will, birthing that academy this coming fall for both our visually impaired students and our deaf students. So we are happy to have today a couple of people who are really responsible for this coming about as quickly as it has. One of these folks is one of our students, Gary Watson. Gary is a 10th grader at the School for the Deaf. And Gary was one of a group of students who actually gave us some ideas about what they wanted. We went to the students and asked them, what do you want us to do for you in terms of increasing the ability of you to, number one, graduate, but also transition into career or post-secondary opportunities? And so Gary led a group that petitioned us to put in a CNA program. And that's just one of many that we're putting in place. The other person who's been very successful in taking the information that's there, that the state is giving them, and putting it in place for this special population of students is the coordinator of our CTE Academy. Her name is Marcia Speed, Dr. Marcia Speed. So I want to introduce Marcia, and I want to introduce Gary to you. They will be giving you a short presentation.
All right. Again, thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak to the BESE board this morning. I wanted to start with a special thank you to Ms. Sandy Holloway and Ms. Kathy Edmondson for coming to the recent SEAT meeting where we were able to be a part of the presentation and then lead a tour of the facility that we'll be discussing today. I also wanted to give a brief thank you to some of our colleagues, some of whom are here today that we are diligently working with so that we can better partner together to make sure that these efforts are a success. If you look at the next slide that we have, the CTE Academy is a part of our strategic plan and our goal to make sure that all of our students are successfully leaving our program with next steps for whatever their goals and dreams are as it relates to college and career. So beginning with this school year, we really started conducting an analysis of what our career preparation program was looking like for our students. What were those outcomes for students, and what were some things that we needed to address and change? This analysis included us collecting and looking at the credential data, us getting with our students and having student focus groups, as well as us taking the time to do student surveys to give the students a sense of agency and voice to be able to tell us what their experience has been with the program, as well as to give us their insight on what they would like to see next. In addition to this, we have also started discussions with different experts in the field, and we have started putting together an advisory group, an ambassador group that will be the umbrella advisory board for the CTE Academy. During the survey portion of things, some of the statements that you see on the slide are things that were direct quotes from our students, where they were very candid in letting us know that they do not want to be limited on their options. They let us know they didn't have enough hands-on projects. They wanted to have opportunities to go off campus. They want opportunities for us to help them figure out what they want to go into for their future. One student even said it's not challenging enough. We hold advanced students back and keep them at a basic level. One of our students, Gary Watson, actually initiated doing a petition, sent me an email, and set me down for a formal meeting to let me know what the students at LSD wanted for their future options. And these students gave a request for us to start a CNA program, and I wanted to give Gary a brief moment to tell you a little bit about his experience thus far.
The reason why I chose the CNA program is because I was thinking of what a CTE could offer. I noticed that a lot of theory people do have CNE in theory schools. I don't think her mic is on. So the CNA program.
Ma'am, pull your mic forward and just make sure the green light's on.
Okay, again, the reason why I chose the CNA program or CNA as a CTE program is because a lot of public schools do have programs that include a program for CNA. And I would like that opportunity to be available for deaf students as well. I want to have a passion for nursing because my mom is a nurse, and it's passed down in my family as our heritage. So it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I want to be prepared before I get to college because I would like to get a master's in nursing. I want to become a practitioner, a nurse practitioner.
All right, thank you, Gary. On the next slide, you will see a chart that kind of...
And additionally, I would just like to say that I would like to become a nurse to help my grandmother. Last year, my grandfather died, and that left us at a loss. And I want the opportunity to be able to help and know how to help my grandmother at this point. So it would really help my family as well if I was to get the training to become a CNA.
So on the next slide, you see that we have a chart that kind of shows where we are and sets the stage for what our next steps will be. Basically, it becomes a question of us addressing issues of equity and wanting to make sure that our students that are from LSVI as well as our students from LSD both have equitable access to a facility to provide them with the training that they need. The chart that you have there shows currently what has been taking place. We have a 50,000 square foot facility, and the first column shows what the capacity of that facility has been previously and some of the courses that were being offered. And you can see to the right that LSD has been offering courses along 6 of those pathways, and LSVI in their building has had access to 3. So one of our major goals with this academy is to be able to use this building to offer equitable access to all of our students and to address some of the issues that we've seen, such as with our credentialing, where our students in history have previously only earned credentials along the customer service and hospitality lines. In terms of our transition rates with our students, we have had 0 graduates from either school that have been placed with services through LRS. And so we have really been taking a look at how we can improve upon our practices because, to be frank, our students really do deserve better. So one of the things that we will be looking to do is use this facility to offer some pathways that are more aligned with the direction that Jumpstart 2.0 is going with. The courses that the students have currently been taking will be more aligned with pathway options, where students will be taking credential exams in those options, and we're also looking to add pathways along the lines of agriculture, business management, public service, and of course, a CNA pathway for our students. Another thing that we will be looking to do, and we will be piloting this year, is seeing what the structure that we need to have in place for virtual courses will look like. So we'll be using one of our schools in SSD, Pinecrest, to see about what that opportunity looks like, so that in the future we can expand and possibly offer some virtual course options to students in other areas and districts. On the next slide, you see the name for our academy, the Dream Academy, which is what came about during the student surveys. It's what the students voted for, and is an acronym that really describes the process that we plan on taking to prepare our students to get ready for the outside world. On the next slide, you see that one of our goals is really just to bring opportunities for our students so that they can feel a sense of pride in what they're being offered on campus, and to have a clear pathway to success by the time they graduate from our school. As I mentioned, we have a 50,000 square foot facility that we are working to renovate and prepare to offer services to our students. And what our program is going to look like with housing both our LSVI and LSD students is not unlike some of the programs that exist in other districts. For example, in Bossier, with the Bossier Parish School for Technology and Innovative Learning, you have students that are being bused in from other schools in the city, like Bossier High or Airline High, that are still students of those respective schools under those respective principals, but come to that facility to take their career courses. And so that's one of the schools that we've actually visited, along with another school that we're looking to partner with and pattern some of our practices after, to make sure we're offering a great program for our students. As I mentioned, we will be looking to offer a total of 10 pathways. We're looking to end those inequities that have existed for our students in not having access to the same facility, and we're looking to broaden the opportunities that they have based on the unique needs of our students. Another thing that we're looking to do is ensure that our instructors are getting the training that they need so that they can be successful in our program, and working to establish stronger partnerships so that our programs are aligned with industry, so that when our students leave, we have developed relationships that will help them with those next steps in getting successful job placements. And then another one of our goals is to make sure that we are reaching back and being a resource to our alumni and a resource to our community. So one of the things that we're also looking for is an opportunity for us to offer support to those in the community and our alumni with career training in the future. And then lastly, you see a timeline that just kind of shows some of the steps that we have taken. Right now, we are in that process where we have been working to develop up our ambassador board. We will also seek to have smaller advisory boards for each industry pathway, because we believe that that is critical to us staying relevant with what types of training the students will need in order to get successful jobs in those areas. This summer, we are looking to send all of our teachers to participate in some way in Jumpstart Summers, either through taking the Quest for Success class, the Avid Pro Tools class, or NCCER courses that we will be looking to offer to our students. And in addition to that, in August, we will have our grand opening, where students will all be taking classes that are responsive to their unique needs in that specific facility, with the hope of next summer being our first opportunity to participate and apply to be a part of Jumpstart Summers, so that we can offer opportunities to other students as well.
Thank you so much. Marcia, can you remind me of your last name?
Speed.
Speed. Oh, I like it. Thank you. Dr. Cooper, can you turn your chair over? I'm going to have Ms. Karen Harris give her public comment.
Sure.
Ms. Harris, if you'll come forward. I just have one public comment card, board members, and then after that public comment, I can, I'll see what questions you might have.
Okay, first I came with another area prepared. I did not know that this was going to be the update. So Mr. White is not here, so I'm going to have to ask my questions basically of y'all. Back in March.
So let me remind you, this is an opportunity to testify. This isn't going, it's not a back and forth.
No, there'll be no back and forth. I'm just going to present, and then y'all can do what you want with it. Back on March the 12th, we were told that at a cost of $50,000, there would be a hiring company contracted to find a certified qualified superintendent for the SSD. March the 26th, I made a request for that information. Through the Department of Education, I followed protocol, and I asked for several other items, and I received a response back on the 9th, stating that there was no information, no one had finalized any contracting with the hiring company. Mr. Cooper's supposed to end his tenure as interim on June the 8th. If we haven't contracted with the hiring company, what's going to be this timeline? Why did the superintendent, did he not contract with someone to find a superintendent when the two finalists did not accept the position? So we have wasted one entire school year in getting a certified qualified superintendent. I need to know what the timeline is on this. I need to know why it hasn't been done. And secondly, now that I know about this information, I'd like to see some protocols, some budgets, some expenses. I'd like to know more about this, and I'd like to know why all of this is done without parent involvement. We are not notified of anything, and it only is done here in secret. I'm quite disappointed in the fact that no one has contacted me with any questions, and matter of fact, I'm really disappointed that parents aren't involved at all, and that's on your half and on the SSD's half. We are vital. There is no communication. Our parents are spread across the state. You have no one being a liaison with the parents, the SSD, the BESE, and the staff. You've got to understand what we deal with on a daily basis. Y'all shouldn't be doing and making decisions for us in secret. You need us. We need you. Our children deserve our input, and you are responsible for contacting and keeping parents involved. That is the point of a school. That is the point of a school district. That is the point of the BESE board. That is the Department of Education's responsibility. Involve us. Quit ignoring us. Quit leaving us out of the loop. In 1970, I'm not going to tell you when, but I was in high school, and I went to trade school as part of the high school program. It wasn't on campus. We met every morning after homeroom. We got on a bus. We went to trade school for 3 hours. That should have never ended in any school district. I'd like more information on the Jump Start, and I really want to know a lot more about what's going on campus. And I don't understand why everything feels so secretive. Why are we left out of the loop? Why are all these decisions made? No one asks. No one gets the input. How many of you are actually certified, qualified, educated in special education? I'd be willing to bet less than 70% of you.
Ms. Harris, I've given you some additional time. Can you please wrap up your comments?
I will. So I have asked since October to meet with the SSD. No contact. I have asked the BESE board several times to speak with me outside of these regimented meetings and to make a meeting with parents outside of this regimented statute. None of you have. So I don't understand why. Why do you not want to talk to any other parents outside of this regimented statute?
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Board members, do you have comments or questions about the item?
Oh, I do.
Ms. Holloway?
Even maybe Ms. Edmondson was with me the day we had the meeting. We had a very good seat meeting. Thank you, Jamie, for organizing this at the School for the Deaf. And we took a tour, and thank you for you who helped us navigate through this huge campus. And I was quite impressed. And our vision for what you're doing is terrific. Marcia, right? Marcia, I'm so sorry. You did an excellent job. And I was in awe to see the facility that's available for these children that can have, as we spoke about Jumpstart, Career Tech, you have all of that to give these children the options and the opportunities to have, as well as other public schools out in the state. So job well done in the initiation of all of this. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Edmondson?
I'm sorry. What's your first name again?
Karen.
Karen. You've raised a lot of concerns.
I have many concerns.
You have many concerns, and so I believe that someone can meet with you about those concerns.
I've been asking for almost a year.
Okay, but I think we could do that, and this is obviously is not the venue to do that. So we will work on doing that.
You all have my contact information.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to ask on the highlight accomplishments and plans list, the parent engagement programs. Pat, somebody speak to me about that. I mean, and the advisory panels that you have. I think some work has been done on that, Karen, but I'd like to hear a little bit more.
One parent from the blind school that is on it.
Okay, let me just hear.
Sure.
Meredith, yeah,
Meredith
thank
Jordan, Assistant Superintendent, Special School District. We know that parent engagement has been something that we need to work on. I'm working with our school leaders to expand parent engagement. One of the ways that we've done that is through our school advisory teams. We do have parents sitting on those boards helping us talk through concerns and make plans, make decisions. One of the other ways the school leaders and I are working on setting up some monthly parent engagement activities. We have one actually coming up this week, Ms. Karen, at our Spring Fest on Thursday. I know Ms. Sprinkle is going to be doing a parent engagement session from 9 to 10, 8 to 9. So we can sit down and take some of this time to answer questions, reach out to parents, listen, seek feedback, and then implement some of those things. So we know that's an area that we have to improve upon. We do value our parents. We do value their input and their engagement. So we will continue to implement some of these.
And you are addressing that in all the areas, is what I wanted to make sure. Because we did hear that at the seat meeting, and we believe that you're attempting to do that. So I wanted to make sure that we got that on the record, that y'all are attempting to try to get parent engagement, because we all realize it's very important. I think you realize that as much as Ms. Karen and the rest of us. So
Absolutely. It will be part of our school improvement plans as well. Parent engagement will be a big part of those plans as we move forward.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Board members, do you have any objection to this item? Hearing none, motion passes. What's our next item?
Your next item is on page 64, item 6.1, consideration of revisions to Bulletin 741 non-public, Louisiana Handbook for Non-Public School Administrators regarding policy alignment and technical edits. The LDE recommendation is to approve as notice of intent revisions to Bulletin 741 non-public.
We need a motion, board members. I have a motion from Mr. Garvey, a second by Ms. Holloway. Do I have any comment cards on this item?
No, Madam Chair, you
There's
do not.
no comment cards. Board members, do you have any questions or comments on this particular item? Hearing none, motion passes. Or any objection, sorry. I'm really hungry. No objection. Hearing none, motion passes. I believe that was our last item.
That concludes our agenda.
Thank you so much.